Brazil, a country of beauty, passion, elegance and excellence. You can describe them with nearly any positive word in the dictionary, with each word being as fitting as the last. And in football, they're no different. 5 World Cups, 9 Copa Americas, current back-to-back Olympic champions. I could continue for hours. They've got a ridiculous number of world-class players and have produced some of the all-time footballing greats, including the likes of 3 times World Cup winner, Pelé. Speaking of Pelé, he's never officially won a Ballon d'Or, due to the fact the award was only given to European players up until 1994, where they chose to open it up to the world. France Football recently acknowledged the fact that Pelé should have been the recipient of 7 Ballon d'Ors, with a key reason surely being due to his involvement in Brazil taking home the Jules Rimet trophy a record 3 times. But in Qatar this year, we may see a new Brazilian lead his country to glory and win his first ever Ballon d'Or. Of course, I'm talking of none other than Neymar. Undeniably one of the most talented players in the world right now, and has been for the last decade. He's often brandished as lazy, arrogant, and even as a cheat for his performances in the last World Cup. But just how much of this narrative has been unfairly dictated by the media, and around his record-breaking transfer to PSG 5 years ago? It's hard to imagine a time when Neymar wasn't a global superstar, especially given he was still one of the most talked about players in the world as a teenager at Santos. But if we rewind to his early days, Neymar was seen as the future of Brazilian football. At the age of just 17, he made his debut for Santos and instantly made his mark, scoring 14 goals and racking up 48 appearances in his first season. Going into his second campaign, an 18-year-old Neymar scored 5 goals in an 8-1 win on the 15th of April 2010, and with many great performances coming across the season leading up to the South Africa World Cup, many were expecting to see Neymar be exposed to a global audience for the first time ever. Neymar had led his Santos side to the Copa do Brasil, and the Brazilian fans were desperate to see him make the trip to South Africa. So much so that a petition with over 14,000 signatures was made to put pressure on the then manager to select the teenager. In the end, Neymar wasn't selected, but he didn't let that get to him, and instead got to work. Over the next few years, he continued to lead Santos to glory. By mid-2013, he'd scored 136 goals in 225 appearances for Santos, and had earned a £79 million move to Barcelona. It was also in 2013 where Neymar would see his first notable accomplishment for the Brazilian first team, where he'd guide them to the final of the Confederations Cup. In 5 games he scored 4 goals, including a goal in the final, where Brazil beat reigning world and back-to-back European champion Spain. Neymar won Golden Ball of the tournament, and going into the World Cup hosted in Brazil the next year, everything looked good. Despite being just 22, Neymar was still Brazil's star man, and was expected to lead the Seleção to their 6th World Cup triumph on home soil. Following the end of the group stages, everything was going to plan. Neymar had scored 4 goals and Brazil topped their group following a tough match in the last 16, where Brazil beat Chile on penalties. Neymar had guided his team to the quarters, scoring what was the winning spot kick. In the quarters, they'd face arguably their hardest competition yet, coming up against a Colombia side led by new star James Rodriguez, who was enjoying the tournament of his life. Colombia had topped their group and went into the quarters with a 100% record, with James having notched at least 1 goal in all of their matches so far. But with about 10 minutes to go, Brazil found themselves 2-0 up and cruising through to the semis. It wasn't all perfect for Brazil though, as in the 63rd minute, Thiago Silva picked up a needless yellow card, ruling him out of their next game. Things would get worse for Brazil though, as in the 80th minute, James Rodriguez drew a goal back for Colombia, and the game became particularly feisty. With just moments to go, Brazil was struck once again with a mighty blow. In the 87th minute, Neymar was victim of an awful foul, leaving him on the floor in agony. The Brazilian star boy had fractured a vertebrae and his World Cup was over. And in the semis, the entire team followed him. Who knows what would have happened had Neymar been fit, but what's certain is that he now wanted to guide Brazil to glory more than ever before, and his next opportunity would be just a year later. The 2015 Copa America came round, and Neymar had been made Brazil's captain, but in the second game of the groups, Neymar kicked the ball at Colombian Pablo Armero after the final whistle, leading to him being suspended for the rest of the competition, in which Brazil were knocked out by Paraguay in the round of 16. This was a clear low in Neymar's international career, but once again, he'd be offered the opportunity to try and turn it around just a year later, with the 2016 Olympics hosted in Rio. The Olympics had been the only competition that the Seleção had never won, and in 2016, Neymar had carried them through to the final. Their opponents? None other than Germany. The final was a tight affair, finishing 1-1 and going to penalties. After 4 taken from each side, nobody had missed, until Nils Petersen saw his spot kick saved, leaving Neymar with the opportunity to win it for Brazil. And he did. Finally, Brazil won Olympic gold, and were going to repeat that success in Tokyo last year. However, there was 2 big international competitions between the 2 Olympic Games. The 2018 World Cup and the 2019 Copa America. Both would see huge disappointment for Neymar. In 2018, Brazil had topped their group going unbeaten, but Neymar had become global public enemy number 1 due to his theatrics in diving. But Brazilians didn't care, as long as they kept winning. Neymar scored in a 2-0 win against Mexico in the last 16, but was unable to prevent a loss to Belgium in the quarters, meaning once again, Neymar couldn't bring home a 6th World Cup to Brazil. But this was arguably nothing compared to what Neymar would face the next year. Brazil once again hosted an international tournament with the 2019 Copa America, and it was Neymar's opportunity to make up for his mistake in the 2015 edition. But just before the tournament kicked off, he'd be struck with an ankle injury in a friendly against Qatar, keeping him out for 4 weeks, and meaning he'd missed the entire competition. Neymar had to watch from the sidelines as Brazil went on to win the whole thing, with the likes of Gabriel Jesus and Everton being the heroes of their home country, rather than Neymar himself. Alongside his international pain, Neymar's club career had hit a huge bump in the road. After becoming the most expensive player of all time in 2017, Neymar failed to take his career to the next level and was unable to win the Champions League with PSG. After leaving Barcelona to become the main man in France, Neymar saw his spotlight stolen by a teenage Kylian Mbappe, who'd already won the World Cup and an extra Liga title over the Brazilian. Injury after injury prevented Neymar from reaching his best, but in 2020 he'd managed to help PSG get to the Champions League final, where once again he'd faced disappointment, losing 1-0 to Bayern Munich. The fans in Paris had grown sick of Neymar, claiming that many of his injuries were fake and that he was causing unrest in the dressing room. But in 2021, he'd be offered the opportunity to take his mind off his Parisian struggles, with the Copa America once again coming round. Neymar started the tournament with 2 goals in 2 games, and carried the side to the top of their group, meaning they'd come up against Chile in the quarters. A 46th minute goal from Lucas Paqueta gave the Seleção the win, and he'd once again score in the semis in yet another 1-0 win. In the final, they'd come up against none other than Argentina, and even if you put all the tension and rivalry between the two countries to the side, it'd specifically be a battle between Neymar and Messi. Both players needed to win, but only one could prevail, and we all know how this story went. Fast forward to this season, and Neymar's recovered in France. PSG sit top of the league as usual, and Neymar has been their standout star, reaching 20 league goal contributions already, a higher tally than his last 3 campaigns, and it's only November. With the Brazilian in the form of his life, Neymar has one aim for this year: the World Cup. Brazil go into the competition as favourites, but with a tough group stage to start out, it's not going to be a walk in the park for Brazil. But let's say Brazil do top their group, they'll likely face a run of Portugal, Germany, Argentina and Spain to win the tournament, with the likes of France, Uruguay and England still more than possible to be competition for Neymar and co. But I wouldn't be surprised if they manage it. Yet again, Neymar is the star of this Brazil side, but he arguably has the best squad he's ever had around him in the national team setup. The Seleção look to be in a very strong position to take home their 6th star, and if they do, Neymar will likely be vital to this glory. But the trophy itself likely wouldn't be the only triumph for Neymar as a product of success in Qatar. It's completely plausible that PSG go on to win the treble this season, and even if they were to just win the League and French Cup, it's still very likely that Neymar will find himself with the one honour he set his eyes upon when leaving Barcelona: the Ballon d'Or. When coming through at Santos over a decade ago now, Neymar was nicknamed the next Pelé, and his entire career he's failed to live up to these expectations from fans. But if Brazil make it 6 in a month's time, and Neymar is the man to lead them to that success, he'll put himself one huge step towards reaching a height that not even Pelé was able to reach in his playing career. And after years of pain, and trying to escape the shadow of his peers, old and new, Neymar da Silva Santos Jr. will be the best footballer on the planet. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe, and make sure you comment what you want to see next. Take care, and get ready for the World Cup.